Okay, welcome to part two of our video tutorial. We hope that you were successful in getting your February cash flow to zero. I want to take you now into the month of March for Sarah's case study. So right off the top, I wanted to remind you that you have to get things properly labeled so you'll know where you're at. I'm going to come up here and double click and type March in for this budget. Likewise, my expense chart. Didn't mean to move that, sorry about that. Anytime you need to do an undo, Control Z or Command Z on a Macintosh, great thing to know, and it's also of course up here in the edit menu. You're going to make mistakes along the way, and that's totally normal, so remember how to do an undo. Saves you a lot of time. So I'm going to double click here and get inside, if I can, this title. I think it'll let me do that. There we go. So I'm going to highlight and call this the March expense pie chart. Close that in just a bit. There we go. Alright, so what we want to try to figure out is what's happening to Sarah in terms of her March budget. And this is an opportunity to better understand how things work in terms of the expenses. So I'm going to scroll over here to the right and show you the daily expense record and how that works. On your instruction sheet, we gave you a few more expenses that weren't actually saved into this template because you need a little bit of practice. So I'm going to type in just one of those to get started. Type in the date, and again I'm pulling these numbers and names from the actual instruction sheet. It was a $10, oops, sorry, I got to do the payment type. So I'm going to do a pull down menu, and let's see, I believe I've already forgotten what we were doing. I think it was a debit, if I remember right. Let me just double check that. We'll swing over here to our instruction sheet. There we go. Yeah, so it's a debit for $10, and I'll type that in next. So we're kind of simulating what you would do if you were, every few days keeping track of your expenses on your own personal budget. Now the reason for the pull down menus, just so you know, is if you were to misspell any of these words, it would throw things off in a major way with your summation formulas. And I'll explain that in some detail in just a second. So we had some entertainment expense going on here, it looks like. It was for the BYU Idaho tickets, and I believe it was for a play. Alright, so I'm going to type in play tickets here. Alright, so that's just to give you an example, but the moment I choose that particular category with that particular dollar amount, what really actually happens is then over here on to the monthly summary, if I go back in here to entertainment, that $10 expense landed right there. And you can experiment back and forth just to see if it really works. For example, if I change that to $20, let's say, watch what happens right here in the entertainment recreation. It changes accordingly. So bottom line is we've built for you some really nice formulas. Let me double click and show you the formula. It's called a SUMIF function in Excel, and it does a really nice job of looking at all the expenses and asking the question, well, do any of them have this label? And if they do, let's add them all together. So that's what a SUMIF is all about. Any cell in gray, remember, as we mentioned in the first tutorial, you do not want to type in there. Let that just happen naturally, because those contain formulas that you don't want to mess up. Alright, so that's what you'll do in the March budget, is you'll get all those expenses, and then you'll need to ultimately get her cash flow to zero. Remember, to get the cash flow to zero requires that you think it through carefully. Is she draining her savings account, or is she actually putting money into it? Remember, this is short-term savings, so it could be virtually anywhere. It could be money that's in her checking account or in savings. We don't actually get into that detail. But it represents the reality for all of us. We either have to borrow from ourselves, or we get to, at the end of the month, pay ourselves a little bit into that area, because either we will balance our budget right on the money, which rarely happens, or more than likely we'll either overspend or underspend. So bottom line is, at the end of each month, that cash flow should be set to zero. Let me just mention briefly a couple other quick items. Down at the bottom in the tabs, when you get ready to go into part 4 and start building things for yourself personally, take advantage of the My Budget. It's a nice clean worksheet with no dollar amounts in goal or actual columns. But if you're interested, there's also an advanced budget that's a little more detailed, and you may want to get help from your instructor if you choose to use this. It actually tries to help you set up things according to your bank account, and it's a little more of a challenge to get things to work correctly. It also deals with the idea of cash versus iCard here on campus at BYU Idaho, or any kind of a card you want to set up can be put there, a food card for example. But only go there if you have an interest. The vast majority of you will want to keep it simple and go with this My Budget approach. Finally, the other 2 tabs that are of interest to you, you can always paste your end results into this annual summary to keep track of how well you did throughout any given year. And then long term is pretty interesting, where you can take a look at money that you might have in a savings account or money market CDs and break it up into as many as 5 different accounts. And so I've got a few notes. Every time you see a right triangle, you'll have some notes here that kind of explain what to do. But hopefully this will get you going. It's all about trying to live by your budget. Making the budget and setting goals is the easy part, but actually living by the budget by the end of the month, that's the tough part. So best wishes to you as you work on that budgeting experience. Have a great day.